This conference will now be recorded.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can, John.
Okay, I've had computer problems the past couple weeks, so
Okay. All right, so I now Eileen disappeared.
Yeah, but you know what? She says she's trying. Maybe we should just go ahead and start, and then she should watch the recording. I don't know. Or you want to wait for 2 more minutes?
No, that's fine. We can, I think we can start. So, I think even though I doubt there's any public part to this meeting, I think I am supposed to read that this is Jamie Miller, Chairman of the Architectural Review Board in the town of Stratford. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, we are conducting the June 2020 Architectural Review meeting virtually via GoToMeeting.com. Quorum for the meeting is a total of 3 members, which we have. In attendance are the following ARB members: Shannon Hovan, member; John Zabel, member; Steve Law, vice chairman; and myself, Jamie Miller, chairman. Also in attendance are Susmitha Toda, town planner, and Eileen Marsh, there she is, recording secretary. Before beginning the regular business of this meeting, I'd like to remind all participants to raise their hand if they would like to speak. I will then recognize you and instruct you to proceed. Each and every time you speak throughout the course of the meeting, and regardless of the number of the times you have spoken previously, you must begin by stating your name and title, such as ARB member, petitioner, attorney, etc. All voting will be done via roll call vote. I will call on each of the board members by name. That member will then reply by stating their name and position, followed by their vote. This is required by Governor Lamont's executive order, which gives us the authority to schedule this virtual meeting. So that being said, I'd like to call the June 11, 2020 Architecture Review Board meeting to order and start by a review of the meeting minutes from May 14th, 2020. Has everyone had an opportunity to go through the meeting minutes?
Steve Law, Vice Chair. I do have a couple
Steve?
comments. Yeah,
Yeah.
Steve Law, Vice Chairman. Just a couple comments, corrections I think we should make. In the 5th bullet point, where it says Mr. Law thanked the presenting team for their proposal, I'm pretty sure that portion of it was Tom Sarkowitz. All that to talk about building B and the plants and the trash. I think that was all Tom's notations.
Okay.
All the way down to where it says bike shed, where at the end of the sentence, residents in building B would have to walk to a dumpster, perhaps by the bike shed. Period. That's where I started.
Okay, so about half of the paragraph is Tom. Yep.
Yeah. And there was also Tom specifically asked about the Carpenter Gothic building in the front, whether that was going to be incorporated or demolished. So I think we might want to note that there was some concern about that being demolished.
Okay, let me just go around the room if any other comments might be easier. So John, I know you had your hand raised. John.
Yep. And I think John Zabel, member, Steve, to follow on what you said, I think they did say it was going to be demolished. Although they agreed they liked the look of it, it wasn't fitting with the rest of the aesthetics of their plan. So again, I'm not going to put words in their mouth, but I think if you review, they did say that. Relative to my comment, 3rd sentence under my comments, this is just, I think this is typographical. Mr. Zabel questioned what colors, not that colors. And then they did show us an example of the lighting in the parking lot. They weren't, however, able to show us examples in the patio area or out front, but they did show some examples. So again, I'm assuming this already went before zoning. It was just me. That would be a question for later, but yeah. And then a couple other more major comments is I think I was the one who made the motion to provide a favorable recommendation, not Tom. I think that went the other way around. And then lastly, under other business, I don't know that I suggested specifically about landscape and lighting. I think my suggestion was more that Susmitha work with the applicants and give them a general idea. I know we're going to touch on that later based on the email we received. So yeah, my comment was just more general to work with Susmitha. Here's what we've already got. She looks at it and says, this will or will not be enough. So that was it for me.
Okay, Shannon, you have any comments? Okay, I'm Jamie Moore, Chairman, and I'm generally set. I didn't actually comment on any of this. Aileen, yes.
So Aileen Marsh, Recording Secretary. I will make all these changes just so you guys are aware. All the minutes, and I have been critiqued by the higher ups, all minutes are, all I'm supposed to record is call to order, motion to adjourn, and motion.
Yeah.
So I'm not supposed to say, you know, Bob suggested flowering shrubs and Jim suggested bushes and someone else suggested trees. I put that in as extras. I can easily not do that because all the minutes should really reflect are, at the end of the day, you made a motion to approve or to recommend this with A, B, or C.
Okay, Susmitha.
Town Planner Susmitha Atota. Aileen, we greatly appreciate what you're doing for us, and I know it's above and beyond the minimum requirement of just noting down the minutes and, noting down the votes and when we started and when we adjourned. The only reason, I mean, you don't have to go into too much detail. Whatever you're giving us, if we can just amend the minutes based on our feedback, that's fine too. The only reason we'd like to have the content in there is because that's the record. So in future, like years down the lane, and that's something I noticed is missing in town hall. So if somebody comes with another application for the same property and I dig up the files, I don't have detailed summary of what transpired in those discussions and why something was voted in a certain way. I do see the letters from the former planning and zoning administrator and the town planner on the final decisions and the conditions of approval and stuff like that, but not actually what the discussion was among the members. And that is an important piece of information to have for future references. Having said that, I mean, if it's becoming tedious for you, definitely these amendments, I can take care of those as needed. If you can just give us a basic outline of the discussion like you've been giving us.
Okay, Jamie Millward, Chairman. So I'm assuming now, without any other further comment, that we can, I can entertain a motion to accept the minutes as revised and proposed by each people who have commented. So do I have a, is there a motion? John Zabel.
Hi, John Zabel, member. I'd like to make a motion to accept the meeting minutes of our May 14th meeting as amended.
Jamie Millward, Chair. Is there a second? Shannon Hovan.
Shannon Hovan, member, I'd like to second the motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Okay, and then I guess I said we'd do a roll call vote, so I will do that, I guess. So John Zabel in favor?
Aye.
Shannon Hovan?
Aye.
Steve Law?
Aye.
Jamie Moore, Chairman, aye. Meeting minutes passed as amended unanimously. Okay, the only thing, we obviously have no application in front of us today, but we talked about it last time, and I thought it would be a reasonable time to kind of look at our application process, both the process of receiving the application itself and also the language that we use. We have a little bit of history under our belt, and we've had some commentary from a couple of our applicants. And so I don't know if everyone had an opportunity to review both the letter from Jim Fitzpatrick, as well as our own form, and as well as the applications we have, the other application we've received in the recent past. So that would be the basis. I don't think we have to solve this today. Perhaps maybe we can, not that there's anything to solve necessarily, but we can make some commentary. Perhaps Susmitha could take that information and kind of do a draft of how to reflect some of these amendments that we can look at for next time. I think that would kind of be the plan. I have a few thoughts myself, but I'll let everyone else kind of chime in first. I'm just going to go around the room. I think it might be best. So Shannon Hovan.
Shannon Hovan, member. Jamie, I thought about it. I think there's pretty specific language that Jim offers in his comments that we could potentially incorporate into our application form, just to maybe add another level of detail. But I'm inclined not to dumb down our application, because I think the more that we ask, the less, if someone tries to cut a corner, we'll still get a lot. But if we kind of, minimize what we're asking and someone tries to cut a corner, then we're not going to have very much information at all. So I'm inclined to just either keep it or add language and keep the bar set high but manageable, because the last application that we had last month is proof that it is quite attainable to have a presentation that fulfills everything that we ask for. So I don't know that we should, I think Jim made some good comments, but I don't know that we should eliminate anything or make it any quote unquote easier, since we've seen from Ceylon and Damien that you can have a really nice full proposal based on what we've asked for. But that's sort of my general thoughts. I don't know what everybody else thinks in the big picture vein. So I'll pass that on to everyone else.
All right, so Jamie Millward, Chairman. I mean, I agree with you, Shannon. It was never my thought that we would be dumbing this down. I think, but when I look at our application, we talk about scale and dimension drawings, but I think that we can just be clear about what it is that we're asking for, specifically about, we want all the floor plans, we want elevations of all four sides of the building, we want a site plan. It makes it a little vague the way we've written it, because we weren't specific about exactly what we want. I mean, I don't know that we need to say that they're, color rendered elevations. I mean, they're nice. I think my opinion is, what we got the last time is, I can't imagine that you're going to get that all the time, I guess. I just think that they were coming from a place where this kind of thing is common and expectations are high. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have high expectations, but I don't know if we want to scare people away. So that's my comment on what you had to say. Shannon.
Shannon Hovan, member. I agree. And then I think, to your point, we should be very, very clear about what we want then, and add more detail to the language that's in the application. If they don't have the means to produce, full color renderings and 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 different drawings, at the very least, we need X, Y, and Z, and that should be well articulated in the application.
Okay, thanks, Jamie Marchand. Thanks. So Steve or John, any thoughts on what Shannon has just said before you get into your own thoughts? John Zabel.
Yeah, I think possible, John Zabel, member, sorry. I think one thing to do, I have the guidelines open on one of my other screens here, and I'm looking at them, and it seems like consistently we're asking about the same things, and I'd call them accessory items. You know what I mean? A couple of the applications, as we know, the elevations weren't good. We didn't get all the elevations we wanted. I think at least on the last two applications, Steve has asked for some angles that had to do with coverage of like the HVAC stuff. I think both the last one and then the diner. So that goes to show we're still possibly not getting all the elevations we want. I'll let Steve speak to that. But also we're missing stuff about landscaping. Excuse me one sec, guys. Let me ignore this other call. Sorry. We're still missing some stuff about landscaping, the lighting. Lighting's a big thing. We're kind of particular in our guidelines about examples of lighting, bike racks and street furniture. It's all in there in our guidelines. And I think those are some of the smaller items, but important because again, the other application was so complete. I think from the last applicant, we really could have focused on some of those smaller items had they brought that detail to bear during their presentation. Sorry,
Jamie Moore, Chair. I want to jump in. Steve, I'm going to get you. I want to jump in because you picked on something I was thinking about, and I'm not even sure that this is the right thing to do, or it's even we'd be able to do this. But coming from a developer standpoint, right? You're coming to make an application like this, and you know, I don't know if they're investing their time and their energy into a project they don't know is going to be approved. So I don't know if things like site lighting, landscaping, you know, a lot of times I feel like, at least in some projects, they just haven't gotten that far yet. It's not that they're not going to do that, but they just, even what we saw, you know, in this last one with Damien, I mean, we all agree, the best application we've seen yet. But, you know, some of those things weren't there yet. They didn't have a landscaping plan exactly. So I'm wondering, is it a good idea at all or worth discussion or even kind of legal to be able to kind of approve a project, but almost like subject to, and you can keep going through the process with, you know, the zoning commission, but ask them once, because eventually they're going to have those things, and ask them to come back again. So we don't slow them down. So hear me out. So, you know, I'm not trying to slow them down. I want them to be able to move forward. We like the project. We like the general look to the project. We want it to go forward. So Smitha, I guess this is a question for you. Can we ask them, say, you're good to go. You know, when you're further down the line, we'd like you to come back and present these other things, lighting, landscaping, whatever it is, so we can have further comment.
So, Jamie, I think it's fair and reasonable to ask a residential developer with TOD style developments that we got like last time to provide us their full details on their landscaping and lighting. But I don't think it would be applicable to a small scale developer because they can't they won't be thinking that far. And I don't know if they would have the resources to pay for somebody to do that. Mm-hmm. I think to be fair to all and, you know, have, you know, you can't treat one person one way and one person the other way with your application. I think it's the way you guys dealt with this in the last application, just asking more details and pressing on those details and, you know, making it clear that it's an important aspect of development. I'm sure, like the last applicant said, they were not that far to actually decide on what type of trees or what type of lighting, but he was willing to work on your recommendations. And, you know, zoning commission, the recommendation letter that we sent to zoning commission also said the same thing, that, you know, at some point they should work with the town staff and the ZEO to determine the type of the type of vegetations, that are suitable for the site. So I think for me, I agree with Shannon. I don't want to keep the application as a lengthy requirement. I want to keep it simple and, you know, take it as it goes. And that's, you know, as a staff, that's my personal opinion, but it's as a group what you decide on that application that counts.
Okay, John Zabel.
Just real quick. Sorry, Steve. I want to hear what Steve has to say. Just following up on what you said, though, Jamie. I don't want the horse to be out of the barn, proverbially, by the time it gets to zoning, though. That's my biggest fear, is if we ask for it to come back. And I'm very interested to hear how this application went, because I heard rumblings that there was a huge community push potentially against this thing, not for the right reasons. But again, I think, as Susmitha pointed out, this applicant was hungry. They were willing. I mean, he even took offense because he thought I was still questioning the lighting. You know what I mean? So we're going to give it to you. We're going to give it to you. It was like, no, no, no. This was the public part of the meeting. I was just making a general comment. You could tell that they wanted to please our board so they get that favorable recommendation. And just a general comment to you, Susmita, I think you've really, in your last 2 approval letters, put forth exactly what we've said, and I think that's important. I don't know if you use Aileen's minutes for that, but again, I think those details become important going over to the zoning commission. So.
Okay,
And
Jamie Moore, Chair. All right, so let's hear, we haven't heard from Steve. So Steve, why don't you chime in here?
Okay, Steve Law, Vice Chairman. I think the big issue really that I want to focus in on is making sure that we get the proper documents to evaluate the architecture. I think, you know, in the most recent application, we got everything we needed. But in the prior one, I think that was lacking a little bit in terms of a complete package. So when we look at the guidelines, I know originally we had a much more elaborate checklist that we were looking at in terms of what documents needed to be provided. I think maybe we want to not to go too overboard, but to get back to a checklist of drawings that need to be included in the package. Obviously, I think we need to see rendered plans. We need to see elevations, and obviously we need to see all sides facades of the building. Otherwise, it's hard for us to fully evaluate it in terms of an architectural presentation. So, you know, in that first application or the diner application, we didn't really have a complete package, and the issue that was brought up was that we should speak up before the hearing and either ask them to supply us with more information or for lack of a better term, reject the application. So I think we just need a better understanding on how we deal with that when it first comes in, whether we have a checklist of documents that we check off to make sure we got everything. But it was, you know, I think we were put in a position that the applicant wanted, and it was, you know, it was in everybody's best interest to approve it, but I felt a little awkward being put in that position to approve it without all the prerequisite documents.
Jamie Moore, Chair, let me chime in. So I totally agree with Steve. And matter of fact, I was really uncomfortable. We essentially approved an application for that diner, talked about what it might look like, and essentially approved it and sent it along on its way. So I you know, that was, to me, I understand that we needed, I guess, to push that through, but that was, I hope we never have to do that again. So I just wanted to chime in about getting the application, forget about what's on the application itself. But, you know, Susmita, I think you're going to get a flavor of the kind of things that, look, we're going to have a checklist of a lot of things, and obviously we're probably not going to get every item from every person. So I don't think we can just reject every application because it's missing some little parts, but there's going to be some real critical parts of the application. It's the things that Steve touched on. And I think, Susmita, as you receive the application, I think the job of reviewing for completeness has to fall to the staff. You know, because I don't think, you know, by the time we get it and you send it out, you know, unless you have, obviously we're all available if you had questions, but I think it'll be important for you to have a clear understanding from us, the bare minimum. What do we have to have? Did we just lose this, Susmita? Maybe. The bare minimum that we need to be able to review an application. And if we had that, you know, like the diner one,
yeah,
you know, maybe it never would have made it to the agenda. I don't know. So, all right. So Steve, I'm sorry. I just wanted to reaffirm that. But Susmita, you have a comment?
You're on mute.
yes. Susmita Atota, Town Planner. I completely agree with you. I'm not on mute. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I think, yeah. So, yes, I will definitely check for completion. I just thought, when he submitted the diner application, I just thought that it was going to be the same on all sides when he showed it like a, a rectangle, a perfect rectangle, and the two sides elevation that is shown. And there was no requirement on our side to have all four sides elevation. But now that we have the experience on this application, I'll certainly make sure that whatever application comes in, we have all four sides and not just two sides. The other thing I wanted to mention too is maybe you could consider developments above a certain size to definitely have renderings and other details on site lighting and landscaping. That would actually put the applications like the village in that bracket. Like maybe developments above 5,000 square feet would require a site lighting plan and a landscaping plan in addition to the elevations, and a rendering is needed, a colored rendering, not just a rendering, but a colored rendering is needed.
Okay, Steve, why don't you continue? Steve Law, go ahead.
Steve Law, Vice Chairman. Susmita, I think that's a valid point, and we can come up with a threshold for what we feel is a substantial project versus, or a smaller, like the diner. Although I think we could probably come up with some language where if it's over that threshold, then we really need the complete package of site lighting, landscape plan, light fixture cuts, etc. I think that's a good point.
Jamie Moore, Chair. So Steve, any other further commentary on the application itself?
Well, Steve Law, Vice Chair, the question is what's our process for either amending or revising the current application?
Jamie Moore, Chair. I was thinking that since we're not at a table together really here, that perhaps we would, Susmita's there, and this is her document, that she can kind of take the information and just, like I mentioned, just kind of come up with another draft, something that we can, this doesn't have to happen right away. We have, the opportunity to get this right. If it takes a couple months, whatever it takes to get it exactly right. But maybe Susmita, after, taking in all this information, and I'd be happy to, sit with you or whatever and go through it again, but, maybe you could come up with a revised based on all of our comments. Susmita.
Susmita Atota, Town Planner. I would also like to run it by the town attorney to make sure we're not doing something that's illegal or exclusionary. And sometimes developers would definitely come back and complain because it's more time consuming and more costly for them to go through several processes to get application approved. And we don't want to, get into that legal window. So now that I know what you're trying to look for in an application, I will put together a draft and I will share it with the town attorney to seek his opinion, and then we can take it from there.
John Zabel.
John Zabel, member. Just again, I think to reiterate what I had said before, I think if you go through our document, they're all broken down by like B, building placement. I don't know that we need to be that specific, but possibly include a reference that A, B, C, and D should be on this. You know what I mean? Not, maybe that's taking it too far, but at least referencing it to the document somehow, because we did take the time to incorporate those individual sections like access driveways and facade entrance and roof elements. You know what I mean? We did take the time to include bullets under each of those. So somehow maybe incorporate that, Susmita, as a starting point. Yeah. Just a suggestion.
Okay, so Jamie Moore, Chair. I think if you're referring to the guide, you're talking about the guidelines themselves and referring back to those. I mean, I think that may or may not become cumbersome, because I think a lot of those things, when we ask for, floor plans floor elevations, indicating all materials, heights, and a site plan, and whether that gets color rendered or not is maybe that goes to the threshold. I think if we had those things, I think, without going flipping through every page, I think most of the items in our guidelines would be answered if we had those. So to me, I think it's about being specific about what drawings we want. And that's what's not on the application right now. It just talks about scaled and dimension drawings, but I think that we should have a specific list. Okay, so is there any other comment on this application process? And I guess I'll just throw it to Susmitha and just make sure that, if we are kind of complete with this, are you comfortable that you have enough, you get the gist of where we're going and could kind of take a first pass at making a revision?
Susmitha, the town planner. Yes, I will definitely do it, Jamie. And again, I would like to applaud Eileen for her hard work, because when you tell me that my letters of recommendation are good enough for the last 2 times, they were taken straight from Eileen's minutes. And so that's the thing that has gotten there. And I'm going to work on the application, and I will get to you something as a draft before our next meeting. I also wanted to give you an update on the village project. So zoning commission had a meeting last night. It was a continued public hearing. There has been an organized opposition for the project. And so this time around, this was continued again because they wanted the applicant to bring back the title of the property and the historic status of the property. I believe there was a concern on demolishing the front structure fronting Main Street, because they seem to think that it has some historic value, but the property is outside the historic district, so it doesn't really, have to go through our historic district commission review. So that's where we stand with the property right now, and the meeting has been continued to June 24th, which is when I think they'll take a final vote, because their 65-day window would have lapsed by then and they cannot have further extensions.
Okay, thank you for that. Jamie Moore, Chair, thank you for that, Susmitha. Does anybody have any, so everybody clear about what's going on with that project? Okay, so I believe that there's nothing further on the, oh, John Zabel, sorry, John Zabel.
Yeah, just meet again, this is an open forum part of our meeting, I guess. Was there anything about the affordability aspect? I know that's what I had heard, or I had read online on the patch or something, that everyone was concerned that it was going to be considered an affordable housing project. So did that?
So Susmitha, Total Town Planner, what they presented in the plans were like all market rate units, no room for affordable housing at all. In fact, I wish they did put in, out of 100 units, at least 10 units aside for, affordability. That way we would have met our threshold of 10% towards the state affordable housing appeals procedure, because our unit counts are increasing, but our affordability count hasn't been increasing. So even though we stand at 6.37% of affordable housing stock in the town right now, that might go further down when we recount in the next few years. So again, what I was told was that they're doing all market rate, no affordable 8-30G at all, or no Section 8 vouchers or nothing of that sort.
Jamie Moore, Chair, and maybe so. I'm not sure what all the rules are in this. I thought that projects like this were required to have a certain percentage of affordability if the towns, as an overall, had not reached their 10% threshold. Am I off base on that, Susmitha?
Yes. Susmitha, town planner, unless the town has an incentive housing zone, you cannot mandate affordable units in market rate developments. So Fairfield has that and they can do it, but not the town of Stratford.
Okay, Jamie Moore, Chair, any further comments on? All right, not hearing any. Is there a motion to adjourn? Steve Law?
The law vice chairman make a motion that we adjourn tonight's meeting, June 11th.
Is there a, Jamie Millward, is there a second? John Zabel?
Second motion to adjourn.
All right, let's just do all in favor, raise your right hand. All in favor? Aye. All right, pass unanimously. Thanks, everybody. So hopefully we'll have
Thank you.
an agenda with some applicants next month. We'll see.
Sounds
Stay
good.
safe. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Stay safe, everybody. Take care.
Wait.